You guys, as a grower or an agronomist, what do you really have control over when it comes to the 5 basics of growing a plant? What do plants need? Sunlight, water, CO2, oxygen, and nutrients. Out of those 5, what do you really have a decent amount of control over? Nutrients, right? You can't control the sunlight, you can't control the CO2, can't control the oxygen, and sometimes can control the water, but it's the nutrients you have fairly large control over, so you best be darn sure that you do the best job possible at controlling those nutrients to give your crop the best chance of success at the end of the season. Your number one yield loss comes from abiotic stress. Percentage-wise, in terms of what you're going to lose yield-wise, is abiotic stress. So what can we do to a crop to best set it up to deal with that abiotic stress? Well, we can think in terms of applying fertility solutions throughout the entirety of the growing season and not simply applying fertilizer. And that's what Taurus is all about. We're about applying fertility inputs, not just fertilizer inputs. We have a vast array of different products. So basically today I'm going to run through some of the corn, wheat, and soybean type, high production crops that we grow, kind of just the quick and dirty of how can we apply fertility to this crop throughout the entirety of the growing season and change our mindset into thinking more in terms of the fertility thinking, not just fertilizer. So within Taurus, we have granular fertility solutions, liquid, foiler, and seed primers fertility solutions, nitrogen management technologies, inoculants, not just for soybeans, but inoculants for every single crop we could grow here, as well as a full service soil chem lab, soil biology lab, and tissue testing lab. To illustrate this, we like to break fertility down to our 3 categories. We have our seed fertility, our soil fertility, and our plant fertility. So we're going to start off with seed fertility. So when you get your bag of seed, where does that seed come from? Well, it comes from a field or a seed lot. And within that field, you have variable zones. And if you drop it down into a variable zone from row to row to row, it's going to experience different levels of nutrients, different levels of water, different levels of abiotic stress. Even within the same plant, on the same plant, each pod is going to experience something a little bit differently. And even within the same pod or the same head or the same cob of corn, each seed is going to experience different levels of water, different levels of stress, different levels of fertility. Think about pollination. The stuff that's pollinated under optimal conditions, those seeds are going to produce or be produced, and they're going to be full of nutrient. They're going to be topped up on everything they could be topped up on. They're going to be set up for success. But the seeds that are ultimately pollinated under less than ideal situations, or maybe a crop's deficient in something, those seeds aren't going to be up to snuff as those nice ones are. And they all end up in the same seed lot. They all end up in a bag of seed, and you guys end up planting it. So what can we do to influence, to level the playing field? How can we bring those less off seeds up to average? How can we bring the average seeds to be great seeds? Well, we can apply nutrients and molecules to the seed itself to level out that playing field, okay? So that's where we have active prime and active PLS. PLS stands for peas, lentils, soybeans. So your active prime can go onto your cereals and your corn type crops, where active PLS we want to see on those legume type crops. Both of these are powered by our patented intrinsic molecule, okay? It's a synthetically produced biostimulant. It's not a kelp extract. It's not a seaweed or molasses or a sugar. It's a synthetically produced in our plant. So we actually have data, and we can show you exactly which hormones we're upregulating, which hormones we're downregulating, okay? So that's the basis of active prime, active PLS, and we'll get to our foiler lineup in a bit, but that's the basis of it. What comes next is a little bit of N in each, a bunch of phosphate, because we want to drive early season roots, and to drive early season roots, you need phosphate. So if we can apply phosphate to every single seed you plant, we're gonna have a better chance at driving early season roots, a little bit of potash, and then we have a nice package of micros sprinkled into each, okay? We took 100 samples of wheat and we had them tested by a third party. All 100 samples were deficient in boron. Every single sample of seed wheat was deficient in boron. 54% were deficient in zinc, and so on and so on and so on. So we did this homework, and then we developed these products. How can we bring these micros and macros to the seed itself and make sure each and every one, just forget about it, each and every one, how can we, actually we can pass these around. Let's pass those 2 around. How can we bring that up, okay? So we developed these, and what we're seeing is between the intrinsic biostimulant plus these nutrients, we see a vast improvement in seedling vigor, more energy, more nutrient, faster, more evenly established crop, and a healthier, larger root system early in the season. If we can set the crop up for success from day one, we're going to reap those benefits throughout the entirety of that growing season. PLS has a little bit different micro package. It's just kind of designed to help with early season nodulation as well. So we want to promote early season nodulation to help give that crop the best chance of success throughout the entirety of the growing season. What else can we do for seed fertility? What else can we apply to the seed to produce fertility? Those are inoculants. I mentioned we can inoculate all crops now. So yes, we have straight end fixing inoculation for soybeans, but we can also bring a bacillus bacteria that colonizes the roots to help fend off diseases and pathogens. We have a mycorrhizal fungal inoculant that can grow the hyphae networks throughout the entirety of that soil, increasing the root surface area, better water use, better nutrient use efficiency, and that goes for all crops. We also have a cereal and corn specific inoculant. It can also be applied to canola. Canola acres are starting to rise. It's a fungus that we found in the deserts of India. And what it does is it influences the plant on a cellular level. It improves the stomatal efficiency, so your heat and your stress tolerance. It improves water use efficiency. It promotes and improves nutrient uptake. And it just overall provides a big plant health boost to those cereals and that corn or that canola, okay? So these are the type of products I'm talking about when I say seed fertility. What can we apply directly to the seed that's fertility focused, and how can we implement that? Are there any quick questions on seed fertility or any of the products I just mentioned?
How does that work with treatment from seed out of the bag?
Well, certain companies we are working with on getting it in the bag, pre-formulated for you guys, but we can still apply it at the grower level or at the custom seed treater level. That can still be done. They both can be over-treated onto stuff that comes treated out of the bag, no issues. We have all the compatibility data and all the use rates and everything. We know exactly how to apply it and when and how much. But yeah, so custom seed treaters, treating on farm. Any retailers that you're working with that treat seed on site can do it for you, as long as you ask them for it to bring it in. And yeah, we are working with certain manufacturers on seed manufacturers on getting it pre-done in the bag, ready to go on your behalf. Does that answer your question, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so corn seed's a tough one just because it is kind of cumbersome to treat it. But with that said, with that Ignite product, the inoculant for the cereals and corn, we have 3 going on 4 years third-party data, and we've seen a 7 bushel advantage. So I mean, do you want to put a little bit extra labor in on treating a tote of seed corn or a couple bags to get it done? Then yeah, it might be. That's up to you to decide if it's worth an average of 7-8 bushels in corn. So. Yeah, on a year like this, I'd expect an even higher return just because of how hot and dry it's been. Yeah. Any other quick questions on seed primers or any of the newer inoculants? All right, let's move along then to soil fertility. So at Taurus, if we're going to think fertility, not fertilizer, we want to make sure that we have controlled release products, low salt index products, and products that have a very high use efficiency so the plant has easy access to them, okay? So yes, we sell straight stabilizers to apply onto urea or into 28. Ours are quite cost effective. We utilize NBPT and DMPP actives. But what's brand new for this year is TSN. It's a very pretty product. Pass this around if you want. It's a very pretty product. TSN is a 4600 controlled release urea-based fertilizer or fertility product. It utilizes the same actives in our NBPT and DMPP stabilizers. We have them at a very high rate, and we have at a very uniform rate during the actual manufacturing process of this urea. We also hand select a higher quality of urea with less fines and less dust, okay? So with that, you can expect an improvement in stabilization versus running just a urea or a 28 with a stabilizer, and you can expect a very high quality product. Less dust means less burn when you're top dressing corn, for example, okay? It's very convenient for the retailer. You don't have to wait for the blending with stabilizers. They don't need to worry about it being too cold or too humid, or the urea they're using is too low in quality to accept a lot of these liquid stabilizers on it. So it just is overall a nice handling, logistically well-placed product. Moving along from N to P, we've got this P2X product. Okay, it's a 33% phos, 9% magnesium. If you want to take a peek at that, pass it around. What makes P2X very unique compared to most other phosphate fertilizers is that, again, very low salt index, controlled release. And it's controlled release because it's not water soluble. It's actually citrate soluble. It takes the root acids from the plant to dissolve it. So every ounce you would apply, the only way it could possibly leave your field is through plant tissue. So getting it in a strip, getting it in a starter bend, getting it in furrow, that's your optimal position for crystal green, or sorry, P2X, just because it takes the root acids to actually dissolve it. It's also promotes soil microbe health. So when using things like MAP and DAP and MES and these other water-soluble phosphates, you're actually stunting and salting out a lot of the soil microbes. So if we truly want to think in the fertility mindset, we want to promote those soil microbes, and P2X does a fantastic job of promoting those soil microbes. We see a season-long feeding approach. It's very easy for the plant roots to dissolve P2X versus something like MAP and DAP. A lot of it gets tied up in the soil and is actually very taxing on that plant, and it needs to release a lot more acids to have access to the water-soluble phosphate that gets tied up in the soil. Use efficiency-wise, in the year of application, anywhere from 75 up to 95% of the actual P2O5 you apply with P2X is going to be uptaken by that crop. Whereas something like MAP, DAP, MES, it's around 25-30% is actually going to be uptaken. All right. So much so, the use efficiency is so great that we can actually pull back rates a hair on your overall P2O5 and still maintain or build your yields overall. That opens up more opportunity for other products in a starter or in a strip blend, or can help cost savings further along. So we've got our N, we've got our P. Now we'll touch base on our potassium and all of our secondaries. Okay, so we have this polysulfate. Some might know it as matrix. So this polysulfate product, it's very heavy. You got it? It's controlled release, low salt index again. You see the theme here. Source of potassium, source of sulfur, source of calcium and magnesium. Okay, it's 14% potash, 19 sulfur, 3.5 mag, and 12 calcium. The release curve of it really matches well with the soybean and corn uptake curve of sulfur specifically. So in terms of placement, we typically use it as a main sulfur source in those crops as well as winter wheat. Because of its slow release nature, you can actually build those levels in the soil in the fall and have that sulfur, have that potash, have all the magnesium, calcium readily available come springtime. So it's a fantastic opportunity to get some potash, some sulfur, into a strip, into a band, not run the risk of any sort of salting or fertilizer injury, and provide that crop ample amounts of time to actually uptake, especially the sulfur, because sulfate's very leachable. So if we can extend the feeding window of sulfate, we're going to get more into the crop. And we see that with tissue tests from all of our work last year with it. While we're on the topic of sulfur and soil health and soil fertility, we have this product called Sulfur Plus. So again, it's a controlled release, very low salt index source of sulfur. What makes Sulfur Plus unique is it's actually 10% by weight fulvic acid. So the binder we use in that prilled product is actually 10 pounds of carbon per 100 pounds of product. So for anyone who's looking to improve soil biology, to improve plant health overall with a fulvic acid type product, this is a fantastic opportunity to get 10 pounds of it in furrow, in a seed row, in a strip type situation without having to worry about blending off any sort of liquid humics or anything like that. Great opportunity for to use it as a sulfur source and to promote that overall soil and plant health aspect of the fulvic acids. Are there any questions on these newer soil fertility type granular products versus traditional fertilizers?
A similar question. Are you working with fertilizer suppliers?
Yeah. So various farm retails are starting to bring some of the stock in-house, so they can have it in bulk. They can have it in totes, so mini bulks. Certain companies we are importing it through the major networks for farm retails within Ontario and Quebec. Again, it does take a little bit of work at the farmer level to push from the bottom up to get some of these products if they're interested in it, and that's on us to come from the top down on the other side of things. And we are starting to meet in the middle, and we are starting to circulate a lot of these products through the major retails throughout Ontario.
Are they blending it with their own?
Yeah, they can blend it with their own. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm not saying you need to incorporate all of these. I'm saying you could take one of each of these categories if you wanted to start to look into, that fertility side of thinking, not just fertilizer. You can start to implement certain things into your program. Everyone farms differently. Everyone has different equipment and application methods, right? So I typically sit down and I go through a whole growers program with them and what kind of equipment they use to figure out kind of the best course or what might be that next step for them to get into the fertility side of things and not just running your NPKs with MAP urea potash. So basically we're covering off each and every portion of a blend would be our ultimate goal. Cover off each and every blend with at least some percentage of that blend being lower salt, being a controlled release, having a higher use efficiency, so we can really start to improve the feeding window and give the crop a lot less salt to have to deal with. And you're basically also setting up that crop better because you're feeding it nutrients longer into the season, so it has access to these nutrients for longer, which helps withstand a lot of abiotic stresses. Okay, we'll move along to plant fertility now. So when we're making a pass through the field, we're going to apply fertility directly to a plant. And how do we do that? Well, we can do that with foliar sprays. Now, that's a very saturated market space, I understand that. Where we like to position our foliars is we have 2 options for your herbicide timing, 2 options for your fungicide timing. Well, we have all the micros and all that fancy stuff as well, but our big main staple products are kind of like a 3-course meal, okay? We want to bring you something that crop has 3 modes of action with. One of them being that intrinsic molecule I mentioned, that patented synthetic biostimulant. That's your first course. Your main course is going to be a huge shot of macros. If we're going to make a pass through a field, we want to ensure that the macro levels in these foliar sprays are as topped up to as much as we possibly can. And then we round things off with our third mode, which is a nice complementary package of micros to address something, an issue or a deficiency that are common at that specific timing. So for herbicide, we have active build. We're trying to build our crop, build our base. Okay, so for early herbicide timing, we want to give the crop a big shot of phos early in its life to push roots, and we want to give the crop a nice micro package that are commonly deficient early in the season to help with overall plant health and to help with herbicide metabolization. A lot of these sprays a lot of these crops we're hitting with multiple modes of action. So if we can help that crop metabolize that spray just a little bit faster, it's going to continue to drive roots and continue to grow and get that spray metabolized and off to the races we go. Again, we're looking to establish a better start to the crop's life, so we have more access to water, more access to nutrients, which better lets that crop deal with the abiotic stresses that it's going to endure over its lifespan. The next herbicide timed one would be a VPR Plus. It's targeting the IP and dry bean type market spaces in the peas, where we typically hit things with a burning type spray. A lot of times those sprays need nitrogen to carry it into the weeds a lot faster, and so we have a urea-based nitrogen source in this spray to help do that, so you don't need to be worried about tank mixing any 28 or anything to heat those tank mixes up. So VPR Plus is just a huge shot of macros with that biostimulant just to give the crop a kick where it needs it to get through that spray a lot nicer. The burning type sprays, they take a while to metabolize. The crop goes on vacation for a couple days while it does that. It looks like crap, but with this, you can expect to see a little bit bounce back a little bit faster. It can continue to grow roots. It can continue to nodulate. It can continue to grow vegetatively while it metabolizes that spray. And again, you're setting that crop up for a better success throughout the season. Pass that around if you wish. That brings us to our next pass we're most likely going to make through a field, and that's our fungicide pass. So if we want to maximize our fungicide pass, we should incorporate some sort of nutrient package that we're trying to target a specific need. So both grain fill and pod fill. Grain fill for your cereals and your corn, pod fill for your legume type crops. For pod fill, we bring some potash to the table and some boron to the table. Now we're looking to use the potash to help with stomatic control, water use efficiency, the plant health component of it. We bring boron to the table as well to help with flower hydration, pollen tube development, things along those lines. We're basically looking to reduce the stress that those legume crops are going to endure when it's hot, when it's dry, so they can pollinate better, less aborted flowers, less aborted pods, 3 bean pods into 4 bean pods, or 2 bean pods into 3 bean pods. We're essentially looking to set more pods when using something like pod fill. Grain fill is targeting a little bit different. We're not looking to improve the overall kernel count, because by the time we're spraying our winter wheat or our corn, we're not going to have an ability to improve the kernel count. But what we can do is improve the weight of those kernels. And what do fungicides do really, really well? They extend the grain filling window of that crop, which means that crop can pack more weight into those kernels. And so grain fill goes right alongside a fungicide in that sense, where we're designed to improve the nutrient relocation aspect of the grain filling stage. How can we pull more nutrients into the grain itself? So we've got nitrogen, when we've got potassium. Potassium should also help with the stomatic control, so when it's dry and when it's hot out. We also have some boron in here as well to help with the pollination and pollen tube development, and the overall stress reduction, typically when it's hot and dry. So your racehorse type corn varieties, you're wanting to probably bring some plant health component to that fungicide pass to give it that extra little help it needs not to tip back, or to pollinate just that little bit better. Is there any questions on plant fertility or any concerns as to our approach to a foliar package? Okay, sounds good. Is there any questions overall on any of the things I touched on today? We went through quite a bit. Again, I'm not asking anyone here to implement all, 10, 12, 15 of these solutions all at once, but there's definitely some low-hanging fruit out there where if someone's looking to gain a little bit here, gain a little bit there, they're pretty simple, pretty easy ways to implement some of these solutions into your program. Again, don't be afraid to ask your farm input company or your crop input company about any of these products. They are familiar with us, or at least they should be. And again, all it takes is one phone call and they can have product on their doorstep, right? So we are looking for that bottom-up help support at the grower level. And things are progressing, and where these companies are starting to take a serious look at these so they can have them around easily for you guys.